Hello, dear students, to the International Business Course video series. Which in this video series, in this episode of the video series, we are going to cover the third chapter, entry modes in international business, and this is the chapter that you are going to have your midterm exam. So you are going to have your midterm exam from globalization and international business, integrative issues in international business, and entry modes in international business. So let's see what we have in this chapter. So after completing this chapter, you will be able to explain why firms choose to go abroad at first and describe internalization process, and then you will be able to explain the decision of entry time and then compare the different modes that firms can use to enter foreign markets. So why do firms to go abroad? How do firms internationalize? And when do firms enter foreign markets? And the choice of entry mode is going to be the is going to be highlighted throughout this video, this episode of the video series. So why we are internationalizing, and what are our choices, when we should enter, and through which method we should enter are the main issues that is going to be covered in this chapter. The eclectic paradigm. Why do firms choose to go abroad? The eclectic paradigm has an answer. The eclectic paradigm is a dominant theory explaining the reason for entering foreign markets. The paradigm asserts that either ownership specific or location specific advantages establish the motives for entering a foreign market. So ownership specific advantages include having or being able to acquire assets not available to another country's firms, and such assets refer to ownership specific advantages because they are assumed to be unique to firms of a particular nationality of ownership. And location specific advantages include assets that are peculiar to a specific location in their origin and use. And that's the reason why many firms choose to go abroad. And how do firms internationalize? If it is the question, then we have two answers: the IP model, internationalization process model, or the LLL framework. Okay, if a firm decides to enter foreign markets, then we have two options to highlight and understand why this is happening. In the IP model, in the internationalization process model, there are two types of variables. We call these variables the state variables and the change variables. The change variables are the crucial ones, since these processes change the characteristics of the focal firm and its environment and then trigger further changes. And they involve knowledge development processes, including learning, creating, and trust building, and commitment processes, including reconfiguring resources, coordinating. The state variables include both operational, like resource skills, relationship, and organizational culture, and dynamic variables like integrating, building, reconfiguring competencies, capabilities, commitments, and so on. And the IP model portrays internationalization as a cyclic process. State variables affect change variables and vice versa. So there's an interaction between the state and change variables here. And the LLR framework has three pillars: linkage, leverage, and learning. As you see from the slide, linkage refers to connecting and marketing, making business with resource-rich companies or companies already active in target market. The linkage can be effected through strategic alliances as well. And leverage refers to gaining access to resources which are outside the firm and which can be incorporated through specific tactics, including concentrating resources around strategic goals, accumulating resources more efficiently, complementing one kind of resources with another, conserving resources whenever possible, and recovering resources from the marketplace as quickly as possible. Learning refers to the repeated application of linkage and leverage. So learning means doing linkage and leverage repetitively. Linkage, leverage, and learning framework argues that internationalism process includes connecting and making business with resource-rich companies or companies already active in the target market. Then you gain access to resources which are outside the firm, which can be incorporated through specific tactics. And these two steps will be repeated in the learning stage of the framework. These two models, the IP model and the LLL framework, is telling us how do firms internationalize in the global settings. So when do firms internationalize? When should firms go into international markets? There are first mover advantages and late mover advantages. First mover advantages include catching learning effects, achieving economies of scale, and forging alliances with the most attractive local partner, and setting the standards and rules of the game. So you are first, so you can set the rules of the game. And the late mover advantage is about comprise free riding on first movers, pioneering investments, avoiding considerable technological and market related uncertainties, and evading being locked into a set of fixed assets of cannibalizing the existing product lines in favor of the new ones. So you have two options. You can be either first mover or late mover. Both of them have advantages and disadvantages. But the timing is an important decision if a firm wants to go abroad. And the choice of entry mode, in the chapter there is a huge section devoted to this one, starting from exporting, strategic alliances, contractual alliances, equity alliances, and wholly owned subsidiaries. There are various ways of serving international markets, and the first one, with the risk in terms of risk, lowest risk one, is exporting. Exporting refers to, as you know from your previous courses, is about selling products which have been produced in one country to customers in any other country. It can be direct and indirect, and the choice is yours. So strategic alliances, on the other hand, is a medium to long-term relationship between firms, are formed to support partners to achieve their strategic objectives through cooperation. Contractual alliances are based on contractual provisions. They include contract manufacturing, licensing, franchising, research and development contracts, joint marketing, consortiums, turnkey projects, build to operate transfer arrangements, and management contracts are all examples of contractual alliances. Equity alliances, on the other hand, are built based on equity ownership. Minority equity alliances and joint ventures are the most common form of this type in international business. Wholly owned subsidiaries is overseas operations that is wholly owned and controlled by an international firm. As I said, in exporting, where we have the low level of risk, in the wholly owned subsidiaries we have high level of risk. The primary reason for the use of wholly owned subsidiaries is to desire for the firm to get total control of the activities in the international settings. There are two ways of establishing wholly owned subsidiaries. You can conduct, or you can do mergers and acquisitions, and you can do greenfield investments. Although the terms mergers and acquisitions are used interchangeably, there are distinctions in each of them. A merger refers to the joining of two independent companies to form a combined entity, and the mergers tend to be friendly. In mergers, the two firms agree to join and create a combined entity. And acquisitions describe the purchase or takeover of one company by another. And acquisitions can be friendly or sometimes unfriendly. A greenfield investment, on the other hand, is the highest form of risk. A greenfield investment is an entry mode through which a firm invests directly in another country by establishing a new wholly owned subsidiary. These are the choices of entry modes that an international business managers can choose while they are going abroad. So this was the end of chapter 3. You can access more learning material from Anadolu Üniversitesi's learning management system called E-Kampüs. Don't forget to read the chapter. The textbook, the chapter is your responsibility for the exam, and good luck with your studies.